Hi, this is Edith, and I want to tell you something. If you insist on denominational purity and you're a small community, pretty soon you may not have a community at all. And that could be the whole story. I could end the video here. Because small Jewish congregations, they don't begin with ideology. They begin with who is actually there in the seat, which is vastly different from huge congregations who have large numbers of families, and they can take pauses at any time and reevaluate their mission and decide which angles they're going to take. But small communities, you can't do that. You need to actually figure out who is there now. And if you insist on purity, you won't be able to get who could join you in the future. So let me use some examples. I have a friend in the Deep South. There are maybe 50 Jews in the entire area, all backgrounds, all level of observance, all versions of life. And they're in, I don't know, a county or a parish or some regional area. If they tried to split that group into Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Renewal, Humanist, Social, whatever, they wouldn't have a synagogue because there isn't enough people to have all those different synagogues. In fact, some Fridays they barely have a minyan. But because they all joined together, because these small communities didn't focus only on ideology and began with the necessity of there being a building at least for these people to come together and worship, they have a congregation. And so I really want you to understand that denominational purity is a luxury of large populations. When you have 1,800 families, such as some of the largest congregations in the United States, in fact, I just recently saw one in Texas that has that many families, you can change direction. And if you lose 100 families, it doesn't affect your bottom line hardly at all. Not so with small congregations. So let's talk about survival. I met another person, lay leader, who's leading a congregation, and she is actually dealing with a painful situation. There are two struggling synagogues in the same town, and that is the only game within a huge distance. I think over an hour drive to get to the next choice of Jewish flavor, as I like to call it. One conservative shul had no building, but they had enough members and money to keep supporting a rabbi. One reform shul had the building and the legal structure, but they couldn't afford a rabbi anymore because they didn't have enough people. And they barely had a minyan as their population has aged out, people have passed away, and people have drifted towards the other larger congregation in town. So it was obvious that a merger made sense on paper, but in practice it stalled. The one side said we should take the building and the structure. The other side said we need cooperation and mutual respect. And neither side could fully yield. Sometimes the choice is merger or die. And sometimes even that choice doesn't resolve anything. So meanwhile, I don't know what's going to happen to that congregation. I don't know if those congregations will figure out a way to work together or not. Other communities aren't merging or arguing, they're just slowly disappearing. I met another gentleman at the same seminar, and he just asked, how do we keep this going? There's no groups in his town. His population is aging out. He feels that the younger Jews are not worshiping anymore like they used to. And he's just concerned. How long can he keep this going? At that point, ideology is no longer the center of the argument. The survival of the community is. There's another kind of group of people that I want to use this illustration for as well. In military towns, college towns, places shaped by temporary work, the population turns over every 1 to 3 years. So 1 year you may have a strong community. It may be a strong, large community. And I mean large, small community. And next year, half the faces are gone. You can't build a rigid denominational boundaries in that kind of environment. You have to build with flexibility, hospitality, continuity with whoever is there right now. 1 year, if you have everyone Orthodox, fine. Next year, you may have a couple conservative, a couple Orthodox, a couple social Jews. You make community by what you have. So why these labels break down? Small communities don't become pluralistic out of theory. They become pluralistic because the alternative is that they would collapse. If you build your circle too narrow, no one fits inside it, and no new people can fit. So whether you're a small congregation that is grateful that a new family moved into town, or grateful that a new retiree group moved into town, or you are a small community that has transient people, maybe new military families that move in every year, you need to make that circle with a nice big opening so that they feel welcome in the middle. Who actually shows up? Well, in these congregations, you don't get clean categories. You get everyone sitting at the same table, and that is the issue. Everyone needs to be comfortable allowing people a place at the table. Whether you are a halakhic, Orthodox, traditional Jew, a cultural Jew that is just socially in this, a Reformed Jew all your life, a traditional conservative Jew since you went to college, or you're just here for the community Jew trying it out again after 30 years. It doesn't matter. You have to let everyone at the table because there's no other table. And I can't even say that enough. There is no other table. And sometimes the right denomination on paper doesn't match the lived reality. I'm going to show you an example. If your nearest preferred shul or synagogue or place of worship is 110 miles round trip, you're probably not driving that every week. Now, I know people who do, but you might be better served, and you're probably happier showing up locally and seeing what happens, saving yourself all the wear and tear on your body and your car and Shabbat, spending your Shabbat driving back and forth, not to take a chance on the local group. I once visited a synagogue and visited repeatedly, and barely anyone spoke to me, and I didn't stay. Luckily, I had a choice that there was another synagogue in the area that I could go to. But sometimes the reason why we need to look at this is because the synagogue that's the synagogue of what we used to worship or be comfortable worshiping in is not the synagogue that we're comfortable with as far as community building. So here's another example. Someone told me they recently moved. I spoke with them at one of my services. They were visiting, and they were Reformed congregants their whole entire life. They moved outside of a large area, so they had many shul choices if they're willing to drive an hour every day. However, in their local suburb, they had two choices, one Reformed congregation and one conservative. So they started attending the Reformed congregation. They felt invisible. Even their child felt invisible. And so they decided, rather than drive hours every Shabbat, that they would try the conservative one. And they ended up being immediately welcomed. It didn't matter the label on the door. What mattered was the experience of being seen. It also mattered that that conservative synagogue was open-minded enough and pluralistic enough that they accepted anybody who walked in their doors. And that's important. let's talk about the final group here of unlabeled Jews. Jews who don't really identify with any denomination or flavor at all. They're not ideological, they're relationship orientated. They show up for Passover, Hanukkah, memories of childhood, being around other Jews, a sense of cultural continuity. They're part of the ecosystem, whether or not they have a label for it. Some seasons they participate a lot, and some seasons you don't see them at all. But in small communities, these Jews matter as well. They're part of the minyan, they're part of the story. And a lot of small communities, such as myself, I have these Jews that come around every Passover and every high holy holidays, and that is fine. It makes our community that much richer. Finally, the last group is those of the parents who are returning for the next generation. There's a lot of parents who did not find value in their Jewish life when they were young. They maybe b'nai mitzvah, maybe they didn't, and they just drifted away to Judaism. But they're coming back through their children, not because of theology, because they want belonging or warmth or community. And lately in my group, the kids are asking to come back. They maybe have friends who are having b'nai mitzvah and they would like to do that as well, or they just want to know more about what it's like to be a Jew because they've never done it before. So these small congregations are often places that can meet them there. I know in a lot of large congregations, if you want to have b'nai mitzvah and you have not been in a congregation your whole entire life, you're going to have a problem meeting those requirements. And it's going to be expensive, and it's going to be a lengthy process with lots of tutors. And by the time you get the kid ready, they might not want to do it anymore. I firmly believe there's an age that's great to grab them for b'nai mitzvah. I think our elders kind of had it smart when they decided the ages of b'nai mitzvah. But small congregations such as mine, we need them so we can also meet them. We value every person at the table. So small Jewish communities survive not because they fit a flavor or denomination, but because we as people fit each other. If we insisted on denominational purity, we would not have a community. And it's not a slogan, although it's maybe something some of us need to have tattooed on a wall someplace. It's just what happens when real people gather in small numbers and try to stay Jewish together, or try to stay anything together. So, I want to invite you into this conversation. We as small congregations need a place to have these discussions. We are not the same as the large congregations. So I invite you to tell me what your struggles are. Do you agree with me? Do you feel like pluralistic purity is not an option like I do, or do you feel like that is the way to go? So please be part of the conversation. My name is Edith, and every small bima, no matter how small, can still do big Torah. Thank you for joining me.